My introduction in the Gilmore Girls was through my girlfriend, now wife. The only thing I knew about the show up until that point was that it was about two white women, a mother and a daughter, and whatever white lady problems they got into. Also, there was a pretty funny Mad TV sketch about the show as well.
Hi, Mom. Rory. Prodigal daughter, fellow sister, soulmate. What are you doing back from college?
We all have dirty laundry in our past. As it turns out, mine is in my present.
When Gilmore Girls first aired in 2000, it won over audiences with its fast-paced, pop-culture-filled dialogue, something that feels akin to Joss Whedon in two sides of the same coin type of way. They fell in love with the quirky, small-town charm of Stars Hollow, and the main intergenerational narrative of the mother-daughter relationship between Lorelai, Rory, and some would even say Emily Gilmore. The show's unique voice and dialogue have left a lasting impact on pop culture, influencing many subsequent shows and drawing a dedicated fan base that spans generations. And let's be honest, in the 21st millennia of our Emperor 2024, who wouldn't want to live in a town where everyone knows about every aspect of your high school dating life? And the biggest drama is who gets an ice cream sundae at the latest town festival. Wait, that kinda sounds horrible. After the Year in the Life revival series left a really bad taste in our mouth, my wife and I have been discussing how over the past few years, the show hasn't aged that well at all. And what used to be a witty and quippy show became entitled and kinda condescending, especially in regards to representation and dynamics in regards to class and privilege. So today we'll be revisiting the caffeine-addicted, never cook a regular meal at home dynamics of what is probably one of the most influential shows you've written off. Grab your oversized coffee mug and let's dive into why this beloved show, while still holding up pretty well, has also aged pretty damn poorly. Firstly, the biggest white elephants in the room, the lack of other races of elephants. One of the most glaring and easy to point out problems with Gilmore Girls is its tragically 2000s lack of diversity. Stars Hollow, Connecticut, where most of the action takes place, is wider than the How Do I Use Seasoning seminar at Boston Dynamics. The only characters of color, such as Lane Kim and Michelle Girard, often fall into stereotypical roles or are relegated to the background as purely comic relief.
Hey, Rory. Things are so crazy. Not crazy good, not crazy bad, just crazy. Like a little...
Surely, Mother, you're not simply here just to greet my return.
Lane Kim, for most of the show, was relegated to being Rory's unlicensed therapist for her boy and family issues. When Lane got any focus of her own, it was always about her stereotypical Asian tiger mom and her urge to break free of that home life. And when the show started to give her more growth, how did they do that? By getting her pregnant with twins after having sex for the first time, which wasn't even that fun. And her relationship with Zach just seems toxic as hell since Adrian Brody's character, who was supposed to end up with Lane, left the show to go join the OC. Lane deserved better. #free Lane. It really sucks that they dropped the ball with what could have been a really impactful Asian characters in a time where even having a gay character was considered spicy and somewhat taboo. Speaking of which, Michelle Girard, a black character, first off, I didn't even know that he was black. I thought he was like French Indian or something like that. Like, I am of the mindset that you can just show a character's traits instead of saying them out loud, but I mean, even I have to draw the line somewhere. In the show, he is portrayed as like a sassy, flamboyant concierge who wasn't even confirmed gay until the revival, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't even understand why he existed outside of being set dressing and comic relief. Like, seriously, his character is rarely given the depth or backstory afforded to people like Lane, Kirk, or even Miss F***ing Patty. This lack of representation feels particularly noticeable in today's media landscape where audiences rightfully expect inclusive and diverse storytelling that can only be accomplished by working with people from different backgrounds. But I find it hard to understand how you had a chance to do something that would be considered so groundbreaking for its time, put it up on a silver platter, and then do nothing with it. Like, I'm at the point of ranting right now because I feel like both characters were done kinda dirty. And in addition to its diversity issues, Gilmore Girls also had a very 2000s view of mental health and body image, often using both subjects as points of humor in ways that would be considered out of pocket today. Depression and heartbreak means sitting in your bedroom all day eating ice cream. Depressed is something that you can be, as opposed to it being an actual thing that can affect even the most basic of functions. These women spend all their time eating multiple entrees, openly and repeatedly rejecting the idea of physical exercise, and Lorelai Gilmore still looks like the milfiest MILF that ever MILFed. Like, what was once cute and quirky became this new weird version of pick-me. I feel like it should go without saying that the standards that they are inadvertently setting are unrealistic at best and dangerous at worst. Speaking of missing the mark, let's talk about the men of the Gilmore Girls. If the women are the coffee, the guys are pretty much the decaf, underwhelming and leaving you wanting something a little bit more stronger and maybe a bit more flavor. So Christopher, Rory's father, is a prime example of this. Despite being a rich deadbeat, the show often tries to redeem him or paint him in a bit of a better light. Christopher was absent for the vast majority of Rory's life, and when he finally returns when she's about 16 years old, that means that he barely got there during some of the most important moments and growth of her young life. Later, after having another daughter from another failed relationship, he ends up overcompensating for his absence in Rory's life by absolutely spoiling the hell out of his second daughter, Gigi. This leads to him being overly reliant on Lorelai for guidance on how to raise a child as a single parent, which also strains Lorelai's relationship with Luke. His attempts to make up for not being there for Rory only highlight his shortcomings as a father. Lorelai was right in realizing that if it took her 20 years to get Chris to actually commit to her, he should have known that they weren't meant to be. Christopher's inconsistent presence and lack of responsibility contrast sharply with Lorelai's constant dedication, yet the show repeatedly offers him a pass. And for the most part, Luke, typically the gruff yet lovable blue-collar everyman, is still a solid character, but unfortunately he also has his moments that have aged poorly. First off, he has this rant about breastfeeding in public, which is uncomfortably wrong and tragically outdated. Luke's vehement opposition to a mother breastfeeding in his diner reflects outdated and heavily sexist views that clash with today's more understanding attitudes towards public breastfeeding. Additionally, Luke hid the existence of his daughter, April, from Lorelai while they were engaged and expected her to be okay with it. In season 7, after getting engaged to Lorelai, he finds out that he has a daughter named April who is already 12 years old at this point. April is a daughter of an old girlfriend of Luke's, and he was discovered to be the father when April pulls a Mamma Mia and uses the yearly science fair as an excuse to discover which of 3 potential men are her father. The inclusion of a surprise preteen in your life would lead to understandable confusion, but Luke is unsure and unwilling to combine his relationship with Lorelai with his newly found relationship with his daughter. This culminates in Lorelai giving Luke an ultimatum: either he marries her now or it's over. Luke panics and cannot commit, which causes Lorelai to walk away. What kills me about this is that despite having commitment issues, Lorelai is ride or die, that's apparent. She would have given herself 100% to Luke and April if he chose her. I get being thrown off with an ultimatum, but this man wanted her since the day he met her, and suddenly now it's not the right time? The secrecy and lack of communication are significant red flags that are glossed over in a metatextual level and kind of infuriating with further dissection. And let's wrap up with Logan Huntsberger, Rory's main, most impactful love interest. The fact that he acts out because of his parents' neglect gives him some depth, but Rory being his first serial girlfriend once again shows off the show's inherent pick-me vibes. Initially introduced as a charming, if reckless, rich kid, Logan's behavior becomes more troubling as the series progresses. He doesn't take his studies that seriously and literally acts like a stereotypical spoiled rich kid when he is around those who don't share his privilege. This is best exemplified during Rory's friendship with a fellow fellow Yale student named Marty. His involvement in the Life and Death Brigade, a secret Yale society known for dangerous and sometimes illegal activities, further underscores his reckless and elitist attitude. Also, while him and Rory were on a break, he pulls a Ross. And I'm sorry, I am on team hooking up with someone else during a break is basically cheating. Argue about it in the comments below. I think Rory was right in pursuing her career instead of living the rest of her life as the woman who fixed Logan, but all that growth and development is just thrown out the window in A Year in the Life, which we'll dive into more in the Rory section. In the revival series, Logan and Rory both decide to engage in a shared affair despite both being in serious relationships. And Rory's poor boyfriend being NTR'd was played off as just a recurring joke, which just turns Rory's year-long love for Logan into a weird, toxic relationship of shared selfishness. But that does not excuse Logan's refusal to commit to either woman either, and his expectation that Rory will ultimately be okay with their arrangement just reflects a deep-seated sense of entitlement and privilege that seems to kinda be the underlying theme of this entire show. So just top off your oversized coffee mug as we wrap up today's video with talking about the Gilmores as a whole. So Gilmore Girls handles class issues about as gracefully as Kirk's attempt at making a short film. Wait, is that Gail the Snail? Side tangent, Kirk's short film is literally what every high school short film looks and sounds like, at least during the 2000s and the early days of early YouTube. It's like if Gilmore Girls did their own version of Steam Hams. Also, Sean and James Gunn are modern comedic treasures. But anyways, the show's treatment of wealth and success is probably one of the most tone-deaf and out-of-touch things about this show. The Gilmore family's wealth felt almost like a deus ex machina for the show. Even if the plot called for Lorelai to be dragged to her parents against her will to ask for some type of help, she always had that option, and more often than not, it was a guaranteed option. At its core, Gilmore Girls presents a heavily romanticized view of privilege. The Gilmore family's wealth is a constant presence, even when Lorelai attempts to distance herself from it. Rory's education at an elite private high school and later Yale is made possible by her grandparents' money. While the show occasionally acknowledges the financial strain that this puts in the family dynamics, it ultimately portrays access to these institutions as an unquestionable good, reinforcing the idea that expensive private education is one of the guaranteed ways to success. The show also fails to adequately address the realities of class struggle. Lorelai's journey from teenage mother to successful inn owner is presented as a triumph of hard work, determination, and with little acknowledgement of the safety net that is her family's wealth. And yes, it was a strained relationship, and yes, they were starting to rebuild it, but this is the way that the story was told. This narrative perpetuates the myth of meritocracy, ignoring the systemic barriers that prevent many people from achieving similar success. Now, Lorelai's past experiences with emotional abuse at home also plays a significant role in shaping her views on privilege. She has her rejection of her parents' wealth and the emphasis on independence, and those are direct responses to her upbringing. However, this also means that she sometimes fails to recognize her own privilege and how that helped her succeed as well. Now, if we decided to dig into the minutiae of Lorelai's backstory, I'm sure that there was probably more that could be extrapolated, but this is one of the most glaring things about the way that this whole story is presented to us as the viewer. Perhaps most troubling is the show's handling of Rory's character development. As Rory moves from Stars Hollow to the world of elite universities and high society, she becomes increasingly entitled and out of touch. By the time she was settled into Yale, Rory had been more than well off and well aware of her family's wealth, but somehow for some reason she never adjusted to this idea. During A Year in the Life, she was worried about being able to make enough income despite having an endless income stream available from her grandparents. Remember when she got to live in that bull house for freaking rent-free? It would have been nice to see her acknowledge her privilege and maybe have a few episodes where she tackles it. Her friendship with Marty started that convo, but as Rory kept focusing more on her love life, it put that concept on the back burner. The way Rory viewed money and privilege never really made sense to a lot of people, and now that we live in a world that has trillion-dollar companies, that type of naivete just seems ignorant at the absolute least. Initially adored for her ambition and relatability, Rory's character arc in the later seasons and the revival has drawn significant criticism. Fans who once saw her as a role model now critique her for embodying entitlement and a lack of growth, which emphasizes a broader disillusionment with the way that the show views and therefore handles the effects of privilege and success. Seeing a grown-up Rory basically being the same child opened up a lot of viewers' eyes to how she might have been a bit of a brat the whole time. There is a moment where Rory rejects a job offer to work for a small newspaper with a freaking salary because she does not, and I quote, want to be a big fish in a small pond. This is a girl straight out of college with no real-world journalism experience, and this was after she got rejected for a New York Times internship. The lack of self-awareness and sense of entitlement is kind of infuriating to think about in a modern-day setting. We also have Rory's pattern of cheating, starting with Jess and later with Dean, which further divides opinions about her character over the years. Rory and Dean's affair, which took place while Dean was married, leading to him getting divorced, is one of the most despicable moments and is cited by many to be the point that Rory went from being a favorite to just ruining any enjoyment viewers had up until that point. I mean, after wrecking a family for the first time, she finally sleeps with Dean in a way that could at least be the beginning of a bit of a redemption arc. Then she just runs away after they're done. These actions reveal a very troubling pattern of behavior that makes it difficult to sympathize with Rory as the show progresses. The 2016 revival, A Year in the Life, was supposed to be the cherry on top of this Gilmore Sunday. Instead, it was kind of more like finding out that Scott Patterson, the actor who plays Luke, felt extremely uncomfortable with the scene where Lorelai and Snooki were openly talking about his butt. It's disappointing and a little bit icky. The revival of Gilmore Girls magnified the existing issues with Rory's character and introduced additional flaws. The response to the revival highlighted a clear generational split. Longtime fans who cherished the original series were let down by the stagnant character development and the continuation of outdated themes. On the other hand, younger viewers and critics criticized the revival for failing to adapt to modern societal shifts, underscoring the show's struggle to age gracefully. Throughout Gilmore Girls, Rory's character consistently exhibited a lack of direction and personal growth, and this continued into A Year in the Life. She moves from one job to another without a clear plan, often seeming lost and unmotivated. Her character, once praised for her ambition and hard work at Chilton, now displays entitlement and a tendency to blame others for her setbacks. This lack of development leaves Rory trapped in a cycle of self-pity and unearned expectations. The revelation of Rory's pregnancy at the end of A Year in the Life further emphasizes her lack of progress. Instead of making deliberate choices, she allows herself to be carried by circumstances and indecision. The fact that the probable father, Logan, is engaged to another person highlights Rory's continued pattern of making convenient rather than responsible decisions. This disappointing development is unfortunately in line with her overall character arc throughout the entire series. So in conclusion, while Gilmore Girls still holds a special place in many hearts, including mine and my wife's, it's important to acknowledge its significant flaws, especially in its portrayal of class and privilege. The show's inability to meaningfully address these issues, along with its lack of diversity, has led to it aging poorly in several aspects. Despite this, we can still appreciate Gilmore Girls for its strengths while being mindful of its shortcomings. Don't forget, it is entirely possible to be critical of how a show is aged and still hold nostalgic value for it. As we introduce Gilmore Girls to younger generations, to our sons and daughters and envies, it's crucial to recognize and discuss the problematic aspects. By doing so, we can help younger viewers understand the context and avoid making the same assumptions and misconceptions about life and the real world that some of us did after watching shows like Gilmore Girls. This critical engagement allows us to cherish the positive memories and lessons from the show while fostering a more informed and discerning perspective. Okay, so if you're watching this right now, that means that I got my Gilmore Girls video done before my vacation. So if so, let me know what you think. I want to once again reiterate, so people don't get weird about this, I think Gilmore Girls is a fine show. Like, it's something that honestly I probably would rewatch again, but just so much of it just doesn't really mesh well with a lot of the stuff that we have going on in like modern day America. That was all that I was really saying. Not saying we need to cancel Gilmore Girls or anything like that. Lorelai Gilmore, it's still, you know, goated MILF, so I don't know what you want me to say. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed my little rant about the men of Gilmore Girls, then go ahead, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. You know, check out some more of my videos before you hit subscribe. But if you do like some more of my videos, I follow the 3-episode rule. So check out maybe like 3 of my videos, and if you like the vibe I'm putting down, then yeah, maybe consider subscribing. I have my 4-year-old knocking on the door wanting to come in, so I'm gonna wrap this up really quick. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Please be civil in the comments. Please don't be weird about this video. I'm not trying to... I don't want to see anyone being like, oh, this guy's sexist and hates Gilmore Girls. No, I really enjoyed the show, but there are just things that don't really age well. I feel like I've said that like 5 times already, but here we are. Okay, thank you again for your time. I gotta go do dad stuff now, and yeah, bye.